Hey, what's up, guys? This is Audie from Sausage Nation, and today we're going to be talking about the specific defense, or this is the part 2 video of the immune system. Alright, so I guess I will go ahead and cue the intro, and then we'll get started. Okay, so now that you're back from the intro, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the specific... Oh, I don't know why this pen isn't writing. Okay, one second. Yeah, there it is. Oh, that's weird. It should write. Okay, so that's writing. Alright, there you are. Okay. Huh, that's weird. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the specific defense. So I guess I'll go ahead and write that down. Scoot up and write that down. Specific. And I will change this to that. Specific defense. Let's change it to the felt pen. Move down a bit. There you go. That's awesome. Okay, so specific defense. All right. This is part 2 to the video that that I did last week. Which was on the non-specific defense. I highly suggest watching that video because this is like the more complicated part of the immune system. I mean, it has nothing to do with the other part. I mean, I guess it sort of does, but it's pretty important to watch the other part too, because it will be on tests and stuff like that, and it's also interesting because the immune system is really interesting in my opinion. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, I guess. Okay, so let me go ahead and have a disclaimer, I guess. The immune system is very, very complicated, okay? And so the explanation that I'm going to give is going to be very linear, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible, but that's at a cost of like leaving out a bunch of stuff. So, I mean, if you're reading the textbook, okay, and you find stuff like, things I don't mention, like, hey, like natural killers. I was supposed to mention that in the last video, but it's just a little too complicated, and it would take forever to do all that. But anyways, once you, if you go and read your textbook or something like that, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that I can't go over here in this video just because of time issues. It would just take way too long to actually do all of that, to talk about every single interaction between all of the cells and things like that. I think there's like 26 different cells, and then each of those cells has 4 different jobs, and then each of those jobs has like 4 different interactions with other cells, things like that. And so it's very complicated, and so I'm not going to deal with all of that. I'm going to go with the basic linear pathway for the immune system. Okay, so there's basically 2 types of I guess we can get started. Yeah. So there's basically 2 types of 2 parts of the specific defense. We have the humoral response. And then we have the cell-mediated response, or the cell-mediated response, or wherein the cells are actually going to be like I guess infected. So cell-mediated response. Okay. So first, I guess we should talk about the humoral response. All right. Response. Because the humoral response is a little more, I guess it's complicated, but it's also not that complicated in a sense. Okay, so the humoral response, humor, or like the humors of the body, it refers to the fluid. So this happens in the extracellular parts of the body. So like the blood, various liquid substances wherever so outside of the cell. It's not going to be in the cell, it's going to be outside of the cell. So like in the tissue, and like blood vessels and things like that. So it's going to happen in the humoral region of the body, or the extracellular region. So extracellular, or outside the cell. The cell. Okay, perfect. All right, so it's gonna happen outside of the cell, so it's not gonna be, inside the cell. The cell-mediated response is what's gonna happen when a cell is actually gonna be infected. But now we're just gonna talk about the humoral response. All right, the humoral response is gonna be controlled by B cells. So B cells. Now there's two types of cells we're gonna talk about. There's lots of other types of cells, but the main cells in these two responses are the B cells and then the T cells in these two responses. So the cell mediated we'll talk about that, but that will consist of T cells. And so there's different like words for these. So they'll be called leukocytes, same thing. White blood cells, same thing. Things like that. But B cells and then T cells, that's what we call them in AP Bio. All right, so I guess we should go we should go ahead and get started. So where does the B come from? Well, I don't know what the actual meaning is or the why we say B cells, but one good way to know where these cells come from is by using the B. So the B I guess in our terms stands for bone marrow. And that might be the real reason why it's called a B cell, but I'm not totally sure about that. So I guess we should, I don't know, we should just move on, I guess, yeah. Okay, so it's going to be made in the bone marrow. Now, all of this stuff, all of this is going to be made from stem cells, directly from stem cells. So it's going to be brought up from the stem cells. It's going to be, I guess, replicated from the stem cells. And then what's going to actually happen is that that these B cells and T cells will actually go through a very rigorous process to see if they'll actually attack your own body. So one of the things that you don't want these cells to do, because they're very capable of doing very bad bad damage to you, is you don't want it to attack you. You know what I mean? So I mean, if you if the army, let's say the army trained like a Navy SEAL. Now you don't want that Navy SEAL to attack the United States, because that would not be good, because you've put so much training into them that they're able to overcome a lot of stuff, and that's the preface of lots and lots of movies. And that's why those movies are so interesting to watch. It's because of that. Now let's get back to biology, but that's what we don't want. We don't want that to happen. We don't want these B cells that are so capable of attacking us, and we don't want these B cells that are so good at killing other things to actually kill us. And so they're going to be tested and tested and tested until the body knows that it's not going to attack us and it's only going to attack other things. All right, so are we cool with that? Okay, so once we're done with that, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Okay. With the rest of the humoral response. Now, what I tried with this is to try to condense all of this into one page, every single thing I'm talking about in this video, and it didn't happen, so I had to move on to 2 pages. So this might be a pretty long video. And as I say that, I'm wasting time by saying that. Okay. All right. So you have 2 different things. Okay, so I guess you have 2 different things. So on a B cell, what will actually happen is, on B cells, you'll actually have these things called antigen receptors. So they're gonna be little things like that, that'll have it'll just be something that's poking out, and it's like a socket for something to come in and fit in. Okay, so you're gonna have tons of these, every single thing will have tons of these things going on. Okay, and so you'll have a bunch of these, in different shapes and sizes to fit every single type of antigen that could possibly come into your body, or whatever ones that you've actually experienced before, because you want to actually protect yourself against those, right? Okay, so you'll have a bunch of those. Now, what will happen is that let's say you're being infected by pathogen A, okay? And so this one would be the antigen receptor for pathogen A. So you're being, let's just say that fits in, okay? So this will go in. The B cell, this is a B cell, so B cell. The B cell will actually, it'll fit in perfectly, and then it's gonna be like, oh no, we're under attack because this thing is, attached to me, and this is a foreign substance because this is not a part of our body. Okay, it's a foreign substance. So what's gonna actually happen is at that point, the B cell will split up into two different types of cells, or it's gonna actually split up into a lot of cells. So it's gonna split up into 10, 20 different cells, 10, 20 cells. Okay, but it will have two types. Okay, so you'll have the plasma cells, which we'll get to later, and then you'll have the memory cells. So memory B cells. Okay, so you'll have the plasma cells and the memory B cells. Now, the plasma cells, what's going to happen is in plasma cells, the plasma cell, what it's going to do, it's going to actually attack, it's going to start to throw out antibodies. I'm pretty sure you've heard of that term. So antibody. So what's going to actually happen is that it's going to start, it's going to start like throwing out or spewing out antibodies to go and catch up and mark any pathogen that fits the requirements of what's been noticed. Okay, so these antibodies are going to go and actually attach to the pathogen. So let's just say this is an antibody. It's going to go and attach to the pathogen. So you'll have like a bunch of this stuff attached to every single bacteria in the body. And I'm going to have to jump around here because I went out of order. But anyways, we're going to talk about how these are going to actually be killed off, things like that later. Right after we talked about the memory cells. Okay, so the memory cells do basically what the name intends. So they're just going to remember, hey, look, this is the type of pathogen that, attacked us. Now, why do we need this? You might ask, why do we, what's the memory cell actually used for? That's a very interesting part of the immune system. The fact that the immune system is able to learn, it's able to adapt and learn and try to protect itself from as many bacteria, things like that as possible by actually, remembering and storing, things that we've already been attacked by into long-term memory. Now, I guess the thing that makes more sense in this situation is when you're getting a vaccine. What actually happens is that when you're getting a vaccine, they actually give you a non-pathogenic version of a bacteria or the flu virus or something like that, for example. And what's going to actually happen is that your body's going to actually attack it and, do all the immune responses that it's supposed to. And by doing that, it'll actually make these memory B cells that will, be able to combat it later if you actually do get infected. I did make a video on vaccines, so I suggest going and watching that one because it's really awesome. I think that was... No, I did allergies first. Yeah, that was probably my second or third one. Second one, yeah. But I did do one on vaccines, so I would go and watch that one, alright? Okay, because I don't know, I just like the immune system and stuff like that. It's very interesting to me, so that's why I do it. Okay, anyways, now let's go ahead and get started with the other stuff now. So memory B cells. Alright, so now let's go back to this with the antibodies. Now, the antibodies actually going to affect the pathogen in 3 different ways. So it can actually, what it can actually do is it'll... the 3 different processes, I guess, are called neutralization. Neutralization. Sorry, I had to read something. Okay, neutralization. And the neutralization, what it's going to do is it's going to actually just mark the... it's going to make the antibody useless by, going to its receptors and things like that, and like clogging them up. So like one way that you could like completely destroy a sink or something like that. Imagine it's like a sink, okay? So let's say you took something and you clogged the drainage pipe in the sink, so no water would be able to go through. that's what basically happens. Now the sink is basically useless because you can't actually flush down water and keep using newer water. So that's basically why that happens. Okay, so basically it's going to make the pathogen useless. So makes pathogen useless. Okay. So then the other one we have is opsonization. Yeah, opsonization. And so what this is going to do is it's going to actually make the antibody, or sorry, not the antibody, the antigen. Now they're also going to call this the bacteria the antigen, because it is it is technically the antigen in this situation. Pathogen, antigen, same thing. Okay, so it's an antigen. So I'm going to use antigen now because it's the same thing. All right. So what it's going to actually do is going to make the antigen easily recognizable. So it's going to make it easily. And so by making it easily recognizable, what's going to actually happen is that this is going to actually, like cytokines are going to be released and things like that. But when a macrophage comes in and it's like, hey, look, this thing is being marked for destruction, I should eat it, okay, or something like that. A phagocytic cell will come in and it'll just eat it up, and it'll be like erased from existence, basically. Okay, so then you also have complement fixation. Okay, so complement fixation, it basically lyses or like destroys the pathogen, lyses pathogen. Okay, and so that concludes the I guess that part of the immune system. So the humoral response. Sorry. There's actually a really cool video. I'll try to have it linked below. But there's actually a really cool video, and he explains everything in like a graphic thing. Personally, I don't really care. You could watch my video, you could watch his video, watch both, whatever. I just want you guys to know it, to understand the immune system and actually, be able to know why things are happening when the things happen, basically. Okay, yeah. But I'll try. Sorry. I'll try to have it linked below because it's actually a really cool video. So definitely be able to check that out. I think it's Nutshell that does it. Yeah, they have like 20-30 people working on that. So it's really awesome to watch. It's a really cool animation and it's really awesome to watch. So I would definitely go and check that out. Okay. Before we waste too much time, let's go ahead and get started with the cell-mediated response. As you can tell, I'm really trying to rush things here. Cell-mediated response. Now, this is a really, but what I'm doing here is a very, bare minimum, understanding of the immune system, because there are whole textbooks written on the immune system, just the immune system. So there's a lot of stuff that happens. Even the video I pointed out, they do the same thing too. But your best friend here in this situation would be to ask a teacher first of all. Because even this didn't make sense to me until we were in class and our teacher, as a class we discussed what things happen in order that they happen, and then everything got cleared up, basically. All misconceptions, things like that got cleared up. So your best friend here is probably your teacher. And then also don't forget about your textbook, okay? Because your textbook has a lot of information too. And definitely read the immune system chapter at least 2 or 3 times. I personally have the AP biology book that we use. Let me see. I think they have. I'm trying to find it. Actually. Yeah, whatever. But we use Campbell's biology, and I think they had 20-30 pages on the immune system. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. So definitely be sure to read it on your textbook too, because this is not good enough, in my opinion. Okay, so before we get too out of hand, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so T cells. This is what's gonna actually. Oh, T cells. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna rewrite that. T cells. Okay, so T cells are gonna be the thing that actually controls this. And it's basically the integral part of the cell-mediated response. So why do we need the cell-mediated response? You might be asking. And I already sort of mentioned this in the humoral response. But basically, why we need this is like, if a cell is infected, the cell-mediated response is going to be there to protect surrounding cells from being infected, and then also like try to kill out that cell so it doesn't infect other cells, and the pathogen doesn't spread everywhere. Okay, so we'll have the T cells. T cells are going to actually be made in the thymus, so the thymus gland. And again, they're going to go through the same training and maybe even more training, because they can actually go out and kill cells. So they really need to know, like, hey, this is something that you don't, mess around with, because lots of cell death. Not good, right? Not good. Okay, so phagocytes. Okay, phagocytes. Phagocytes are going to be mainly comprised of macrophages. At least that's the one that we talk about in AmpiBio. Now, there's a lot of phagocytes in the human body. There's a lot of them, so don't worry about it. But macrophages are going to be the ones that we're going to worry about. So macrophages, what they're going to do is, it's going to find the, we're going to be infected. Okay, so let's say we get a cut. This is where the cell-mediated response would happen. Okay, so let's say we get a cut. Like we talked about in the last one. The phagocytes, or the macrophages and the phagocytic cells, are going to come in, and they're going to actually start eating up the bacteria. And what they're going to do is they're going to use their MHC, or multi-histocompatibility complexes, or just call them MHC 1s and MHC 2s. The MHC, protein, to actually present the antigen to the immune system. So that's going to be called the APC. So APCs are cells, are antigen presenting cells. So when a macrophage actually eats the antigen, what it's going to do is it's going to break up the antigen into multiple parts, and then it's going to present it to the immune system. And so what's going to happen after that is that the T cell is going to come by, and it's got a helper T cell. So we're going to have, let's see, this is a macrophage. So you're going to have this APC. So that's going to be an APC right there. Yeah, I know, poor drawing, but oh well, it's an APC, but whatever, we're going to go with it. Okay, and then in red I'll have the helper T cell. So helper T. Now what the convention they actually use in textbooks and stuff, I'm trying to get you guys familiar to actually read the textbooks and stuff like that. Definitely for this chapter, read the textbook. All right, T, and then they're gonna have sub H. So this is gonna be the helper T cell. And what it's gonna do is gonna actually go and bond to this, and it's gonna be like, oh, red alert, red alert, red alert. Hey, look, we need this thing taken care of. So what it's gonna do, it's gonna take that antigen in. It's gonna separate into different parts. And it's going to start, it's going to use cytokines. Actually, this is going to be releasing interleukin. So this is going to be releasing interleukin. And what interleukin is going to do is going to bring in T cells, B cells, things like that. Now, what this is going to do, this is going to amplify the amount of interleukin. So it's going to amplify it. It's going to make it even larger. It's going to try to, get as many cells here as possible. So the H cell, what it's going to do is it's going to split up into two different cells. It's going to, the T cell is going to split up into two cells. So the T cell will split up into, so let's say it's a TH cell. Okay. Once it's done, it's going to split up into two different cells. It's going to split up into the effector T cell. And then it's going to split up into, or they're going to, I think, use TE. Okay. And then the effector T cell, and then it's also going to be splitting up into the memory T cell. Okay, and they're gonna, I think they use TM. I'm not sure. But anyways, that's what that is. Okay, now you guys know what the memory T cells, and memory T cells do the same thing as memory B cells. So don't worry about it. Okay. Effector T cells, what they're gonna do, they're gonna try to kill off the infected cells. Okay. So they're gonna come in, they're gonna try to kill off the infected cells, because those cells have gotten damaged. They're useless by now, and they need to die, because we can't risk getting getting the pathogen spread to other parts of the body. Now, what's going to happen here is that this is going to actually go in, and it's going to kill the cell. But what's going to happen after that, once it lyses the cell, some of the pathogens that have already been made are going to be released. So let's say it's making a virus. If it's making a virus, then some of it's going to obviously be made already, so that's going to be released. Now, the T cell, the interleukin, and the cytokine, so it's also going to be using cytokines. Interleukin and the cytokines will actually go and start the humoral response with B cells. It's going to actually go and be like, hey, B cell, do your work, man, or something like that. So then, once that happens, it's gonna actually use like perforin, which is going to poke holes in the cell and then lyse it, to try to kill off the cell, and things like that. Now, the other cells around it will spread apart to, not get infected, and basically we have a winning battle right now. Now, the memory cell will actually, now let's talk about, so that concludes like the cell-mediated response, but we're not done yet, okay? So the memory in the immune system is gonna actually be used to, and we're gonna look at a picture after this, but you'll see, the first response usually takes about 30 days or something like that to a really big pathogen, for example. It'll take 30 days to kill off. But if we were already infected with that pathogen before, what would happen is that we would actually be able to we would actually be able to kill it off in 15 days with no symptoms at all. So that's why the memory is so important, and that's why you should get your vaccines. Because the vaccines, what they're going to do is they're going to make it so that your body can make those antibodies. Like here, in the humoral response, is company the humoral response. Sorry, I can't talk today. But the humoral response is going to be completely dependent on the amount of antibodies that are produced. And if we don't have antibodies for it, it's going to take forever to have it produced. And so with the antibodies already there, we can actually just make it. It'll be really easy for us to just, to produce the antibodies and then kill it off within, first contact that we have. It's not going to be under the radar. We're going to notice it immediately, and then we're going to kill it off immediately. No symptoms, nothing. Everything's done good to go, and we're good, ready to go 15 days, tops. Okay? Alright, so now let's go ahead and look at that picture. Okay, so it's a pretty big picture. I try to get it as big as possible. Okay, so let's see. We have the humoral response, and then we have the cell-mediated response, like I was talking about. Okay, so we have the first antigen exposure. Okay, and so this is going to be engulfed by macrophages. See, this is all the pathways that it could take. So we could so let's say if we get cut, this is what's going to happen. The macrophages are going to come in, and then this is going to be an antigen presenting cell, like I mentioned before, and then helper T cells will be stimulated by that. This will call out B cells, and it'll call out cytotoxic T cells or effector T cells. This is / effector, same thing. Okay, or effector T cells, and what's going to happen is, you'll have both the humoral response and the cell-mediated response happening at the same time. This is going to go in, if we take this from this side of things, you're going to have this go here, and then the effector cells are going to, actually kill the cell. You'll have memory cells, things like that. Okay, this is going to come in, memory cells are going to be made, stimulates B cells, that blah blah blah, and all that happens. Okay, now let's look at the second exposure. Okay, second exposure right there. Okay, we don't have to worry about any of this. All right, so this is going to stimulate the memory T cell. It's going to stimulate memory T cells, memory B cells. It's going to attack it, go straight to the cytotoxic T cells and plasma cells. It's going to secrete antibodies on this side. This is just going to kill it, and we're going to be good, perfectly good to go. And it's going to defend against everything. All right, so this is why we need to, you know, the immune system is so complicated, because, you know, there's so many bacteria, things like that, that could infect us easily. And the immune system, what it does is it makes it, you know, it's like a fail-safe method of protecting you against all types of bacteria. Because you know what the not the saying, but the scientific fact is, right? That there are more bacteria on you than there are cells in your body. It's just the fact. It's just a fact. Yeah. Okay, so I guess with all of that, we can go ahead and finish out this video. All right. What do you guys have to know? Basically, know this chart. Okay. This is all you need for AP Bio. It's not going to be, I mean, the textbook will go really complicated into in depth. I personally found it really interesting to learn, but we never really used it to actually learn, to actually on tests and stuff like that. So you'll need like a pretty, not a basic understanding, but a okay solid understanding of what's happening. You should know what's happening, what stimulates what, at least in this like very bare bones version of what we're actually dealing with. Alright, so I can go ahead and end the video with that. Let's go ahead and do that actually. Let's go ahead and end the video. Alright, and I guess I will see you guys in the next one.